So we'll be recording tonight. Thanks, Robbie. So I'm just gonna jump into this and get rolling. We're gonna be here as long as we need to, up to about 9 o'clock. And we're gonna focus on elk tonight. So this is the proposed hunting season and regulation changes with the focus on elk for Region 5. It's a public information meeting. So we're here to answer questions or thoughts that you maybe have on the proposals. And then we'll move through that. So jumping into the next slide, get myself oriented here and get everything set. There we go. So with that, we do have a cast of characters here that have been instrumental in pulling all of this information together, working on the request for the simplification piece, and then as they do every 2 years, working on where we're headed with our regulations. And to introduce those folks, Ashley Taylor is the biologist out of the Snowies, the north end of the Region 5. Megan O'Reilly is off to the east, has largely 590. Sean Stewart to our south on 555, 575, 502 over in there, and Justin Paw off to our west. We have Matt Ladd, who's also with us tonight. He is the regional wildlife manager as of this year. And then I'm Mike Ruggles. I'm the regional supervisor that's trying to keep up with these folks and all the good work they're doing. We also have Robbie Sikora, who's going to help manage all the IT piece and is our admin support staff person. So if we've got things that technically are being worked on, he's the one that will be leaning on. So as we go through tonight and when we open it up to questions, we'll be turning things over to Matt and the biologist as appropriate and largely for those folks. I've pulled the presentation together to help me go through all the public information that's been put out there and to make sure that I can better understand all the things that the staff has been working on and talk about those as well. So if I have any errors, miss something, I expect that the biologist or Matt will jump up and say, hey, we just want to catch you on that one, make sure we get the best information. With that being said, we have found today, in part from some folks getting a hold of us, in part stuff that we found that on either the master list or the maps aren't 100% from what came through from the commission for proposals and approvals. So we'll identify those as we go through tonight. And so we think we'll be able to catch most of those, but maybe we still haven't caught all of them. It definitely was a lot of moving parts to get here and a lot of hard work by the staff that we're showing here on the map at the moment. So with that, so tonight, this is an information meeting and we'll go through on how to officially make comments. To do that, you can find all the information that we're showing tonight. Largely have pulled that from the master lists and pulled that from the maps and built this presentation. And that's on our main website. You can go to the season setting 2022-2023 tile on the main page, and that'll get you down into that web link where you can make comments on the proposals. You can select the species or group of species to comment on and whether they're statewide or by region. And you can select those and do that comment online, which I'll show you what that looks like. You can also send in all your comments grouped in an individual email. And if you prefer and you want to mail those in, you can mail those off to our Helena address. I might recommend that you put a note on there saying that this is for the season setting 2022-23 process as an attention to make sure that it gets sorted out, sent to the right place. So if this all works, I'm going to demonstrate the website. So this would be the link that would get you there, fwp.mt.gov. And I'm just going to confirm, Matt, if you can give me a nod, if you can see the website. Okay, we're good there. So this is what you would come up to at that fwp.mt.gov. You just scroll down. Here's some of the latest stuff that's going on. Here's that tile that I mentioned. You'd be able to click onto that. You can see for here, if you click on where the other meetings, the CAC regional meetings, the other meetings that the other regions are putting on for their information, the email link. And here's the tiles where I said you could go in and you could look at the statewide proposals. individual deer and elk, antelope. So since tonight in Region 5, we're going to focus this on elk. Click on that as an example. So again, there's the email. You would pull up a statewide map if you wanted to look at what these other changes look like on a statewide that are being proposed. The statewide master list, if you wanted to see all the proposed changes for elk, be able to download that. I'm going to move to the Region 5 one. And we'll say we want to look at what the regulations might look like based on these proposals in 2022 and 2023. And we hope that these are printed out by the 1st of March or very, very shortly after that is our goal. We'll see if we can get there, but this is what that would look like mocked up. So I've taken bits and pieces of this and put it into the presentation for tonight's discussion. So we'll get into that, but that's one piece that you can look at. The other one I've been referring to the master list. And here's what that master list looks like. So it talks about those individual district numbers and what we did in those district numbers. So this would be a remove 595 00 antlerless B elk license in these hunting districts as an example. If you decided that you wanted to comment online, you'd be able to fill in this contact information, which is optional. So you don't have to provide that. You can be anonymous in your comments, or you can put that in there if you'd like. You can select multiple districts or single districts and then put in your comments and click the done button. Once you go through and do your comments, at the end of it, it'll say, thank you for providing your survey, which is a sign that your information was forwarded and sent to the system, which then staff will organize, look at, and compile in preparation for the February 4th commission meeting. With that, back out. So that explains how to get through and do that online. Otherwise, again, you can send in comments via email, or you can send them through the regular mail. So we started this process out and had a scoping meeting. Took some of those comments in, which took it to here. There's been some changes that were made at the statewide level, conversations that are done. So a lot of things have happened since we came from that scoping meeting. But ultimately, we ended up with a change in our district numbers and a change in our total districts as a way to simplify the regulations and then go forward with our biennial changes. So Region 5 has 12 deer and elk districts, so, or rather 12 deer and elk districts. This effort resulted in 10 districts. Some of those have been combined. Some of them are the same. So for instance, 540 stays 540, 515 is a combination of two districts here. And then we have a new but old one. So in the mid 1980s, 565 became a portion of 560 rather than its own district. And now it's, again, its own district for management purposes in this proposal. And LPT are those lines that I showed you in the table that would come out of the regulations. So one of the objectives is there's a lot of choices. Can we reduce some of those choices, but still provide ample opportunity? And so when we looked at that, there were 62 license or permit types for elk in Region 5. Through this effort, we have resulted in 32 LPTs for elk. That includes lines for general elk and then individual lines for each district that would have a license type for, say, cows, that would be across multiple districts. So we'll get into that. But ultimately, we took it down from those 62 license types to 32, so almost a 50% reduction in choices, but still maintaining opportunity. This is a representation of the current rules as they stand under the book for the seasons that is just ending and past. So these hash marked areas are our portions. So here's the old 560 or the new 565 as being a portion of 560. You can see the portions here. There's portions that were in 701 that are tied to 590 as well. So one of those objectives, if we could remove those portions, that would make the regulations a little bit simpler to read. And in some cases they got absorbed, and in 565's case became a district of its own. So we got rid of those districts. We renamed the districts. And this is what the map that we're working from today as a proposal. I'm going to go through a handful of slides that talk about license types that cover multiple districts. One of the main ones that came up was the 920, which was an either sex elk archery permit in Region 5, as well as several other regions. Under these proposals, those have been disbanded. And in Region 5, we resulted in the West going to a general elk license as a proposal, and then coming to a 595-21 permit, which would be usable in all these districts, which would include 502, 535, 555, 590, and that portion of 701 would remain as part of the 595 hunting requirement, which came out of some of the comments during the scoping piece. Moving into Elk B licenses, there'll be an Elk B 900 license, which will be unlimited and over the counter for districts that are over 200% of the elk objective, and will only be valid on private lands. In Region 5, it would cover the shaded area and cover 515, 535, 575, 580, and 590. We had an Elk B license, 595-00, and we offered 3,500 of those licenses. We're going to remove those licenses by the license title. Ultimately, they're going to be added and increased to the 005-00. So there's some changes with these. The 595 wasn't valid on some of the Forest Service lands. This 005 will be in some areas. And we took the 3,500 licenses, added them to the current 2,500 for the 00500, which results in the 6,000 that you see in the table. And again, some of those location changes start to include some of these forested lands under this Elk B license. So in this case, we essentially got rid of one tag, melded them into another to reduce the options for cow tags in most of the districts. We also, and this is where there are some changes that didn't get caught up into the current master list that's out, as well as the table, but the 411-20. So this was available. There are 450 permits available under this proposal, which is the 50% increase in these districts that were over objective. If you were to get this permit and successful, this would be the district that you selected and the only place that you would be able to hunt for bull elk in this year under this permit. So that's one of the new proposals as well. But in the table, it's got a different number, which is reflective of the 150, which was a 50% reduction from the current number. And that's not accurate. And we're working to get that updated on the information. And we'll hit that one more time. There's also the 411-00 antlerless elk license, which is valid both in 411 and the new 535. There'll be 1,200 of those licenses available under the proposal. It is an early season private only license, and then it would work for archery rifle and muzzleloader on both public and private lands. So currently the master list talks about the split between public and private. That was a proposal prior to the commission meeting that was rejected at the commission meeting, and moved forward with the one that I just explained in the previous slides. So here we are coming back to the map. I'm going to go quickly through each one of the districts, and really just so that there's a reference. If somebody has a question and they need me to pull back up a district, we can do that. And then towards the end of the meeting, if there's some time, we can work on other species. I also have some slides that are prepped for some of that. So we'll be able to go into that. But here's the map of where we're at under the current proposal for Region 5. So another thing that we caught, so this would be 502. We're going to go through each one of these just to get you oriented. For those of you that are maybe new to hunting and wonder what's going on, I'll quickly explain it to you. For those of you that have been hunting for a while, this should be pretty familiar. So we've got the license type over here, which is that LPT I referenced. So in this case, in 502, there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different licenses for this one being combined. So there's early season dates, which really we're looking at game management within private lands that are causing problems. So only valid on private land, those early season areas. Then we come into archery only and general season. General elk could be valid here. At the end, this is the note down here, the muzzleloader dates are missing from some of our tables. And the muzzle loaders have already been approved by the commission, so that's not part of the season setting proposal, but it is missing from the table since they're new. So this one should actually have the December 10th to December 18th date in there, as should this. Any season, general season that ends on the general season last day of hunting, that should be in there. So it made it onto here. It will be on here and here when we get to the final list, once that comes in. And again, that's not part of the proposals for this one. That's already been accepted by the commission. So what is up, what changes did we make? So you'll see here, the license type. So this is one where we're at or under objective. You'll see that 502.20, the quota is 30. You need to apply by April 1st. These are no application dates. You can buy those as soon as we go on sale in March and all the way through the end of season. And there's no quota on these over-the-counter licenses here for residents. You'll see that we get to the 595.21, which we added in. You can see that that's unlimited. It tells you which portions or which areas that they're valid in, including the portion. And this is one where if you were to go hunting for bull elk, you would not be able to hunt bull elk in any other district besides these. You could take it and hunt cows in another district, but limited to where you're going to hunt bulls. And then the elk B license, which you'll see regularly throughout the rest of them. So no boundary change. So I'm going to go through a little bit more quickly on the rest of these. No boundary change on this particular one. 515, kind of that central part of the state, the painted robe area. We combined District 570 and 500. See that the license types are down to the 3 with 2 general elk license options in there. Hunting District 525 for elk, we combined Districts 560 and 520. And again, this is 560. We pulled out 565, made that its own district. So that was a portion of 560. Hunting District 535. This is the one at the table below this number where I put in red. It says 150 in the information that we have out to the public. That wasn't updated. We missed that before it went out. So it really is the 450 that was in the news release. That's out for proposal and comment. This describes where it's valid. Includes the 411 districts plus 535. And this is that 50% increase in that quota that was discussed at the commission meeting. We also have the 595, the 41100, the 00500, and the 900s. All of these, either private land, public lands, or limited on some public lands. So this one is one of the more complicated of ours, but ample opportunity. This district is well over objective. District 540, no boundary change. 3 license types. Hunting District 555, we combined Districts 510 and a portion of 520 to pull this one together. And we're down to 3 license types. This is one of those with a limited either sex elk at 30 is the proposal. Unlimited for the archery, bull only, limited to this area. The elk B licenses also limited in this area. Again, this herd is at or under objective. Hunting District 565. This was that former southern portion of 560. So south of Falls Creek, down to general elk license. This is largely public land. So the late season isn't going to be allowed on there. Looking at that as kind of a wintering habitat area. Hunting District 575, no boundary change proposed in this one. You can see the license types pretty similar to the others. 580, no boundary change. This is the east slope of the Crazies. Again, you can see the license types. And then we arrive at 590, which this one also has the wrong number underneath. This is one of the districts that's over objective. And the proposal is to go to 380 permits for that. And then you can see the remaining licenses. And this is also the one that's tied to that portion of Hunting District 701. So the rules here would apply over to that district. So with that, Robbie, do we have kind of a head count for numbers roughly?
About 25 attendees. Yeah, and we got some questions coming in too. So you want me to start reading those?
I think we will go right to voice first.
Okay.
So we'll try 2 minutes. I'll pull up my watch here, watch my time here. And we can circle back. So if we have questions that are more complex or take a little bit more time, we can try to circle back. But to make sure that everybody gets a little bit of time, we'll go 2 minutes for questions or thoughts on where we're headed. We'll try to answer those back in the sake of saving some time and moving forward too within about 2 minutes. So we'll kick them off to Matt or the biologist. May end up kicking it to Matt. Matt might kick it to the biologist. So we'll move those around, but try to get those done within a couple minutes and then move to the next question. And then we'll pick up the typed ones as we get towards the end if we haven't hit those already. And then around 8:30 or sooner, if we've kind of gotten through the questions, we can open it up to stuff that people want to talk about for the other species, which tomorrow we're going to do this again, but it's going to focus on deer, sheep, goat, bison, turkeys, mountain lions, bears, the whole part of there. And then at the end of that meeting, for anybody that missed this one and had some elk questions, we'll pick up elk questions then too. So Robbie, I'll let you just kind of work through them for the ones that put their hands up, and then we'll decide where to kick them from there. So.
Yep. So if anybody does have a question, at the bottom of the screen, there's the raise hand button. So for those of you that have questions, there we go. You guys are starting to do it. I'll click on you one at a time. I'll unmute you and then we can. So the first one, we'll go with Eric.
Yep. And if you guys want me to go back to a slide for reference, I'll try to jump back to a slide and we can throw it up there if that helps the conversation too. So
Eric, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this is Eric. I was on your meeting a few months back, kind of when all this came out, and just a few thoughts. I guess from my perspective, I do appreciate kind of the regional archery permit, going from the 900. I get that that was a huge area and you need to narrow it down, but I think it's kind of a good compromise to have a regional structure like you have now, where you combine multiple hunting districts and kind of split the difference a little bit, as opposed to go down to just a singular district. So I just wanted to express my support and thanks for kind of taking a look at that. I guess the question I would have on the archery side is, I think it should be made a first and only choice, whether it's unlimited or whether there's a quota. And so I guess I'd like to get maybe your thoughts on that. And then the second question I had is, with essentially unlimited cow licenses out there, and then we're increasing essentially the bull permits, the rifle permits, 50%. You got a lot of moving parts. I guess I'd like to get your take on that, and maybe doing something where you split the difference a little bit as well, maybe a 25% increase in the quota, along with the additional the cow elk licenses. And I guess I own land in a couple different districts, just smaller pieces of land, and there's a really good age class, and I'd just hate to see that destroyed in 1 or 2 years. So I get the objectives, and just maybe some consideration to I guess some compromise there, or if that's even possible. So I'd like to get your thoughts on those two things, making the archery first and only choice, and potentially just going up maybe 25% instead of the 50%. So again, thanks for all your work too. I appreciate it. I know that all the political wins you guys are dealing with, and I do appreciate your time for putting this on.
Oh, and thanks for joining us. So I'd say those are some good comments, and make sure that you take the time to get those either emailed in or do that. And then I'll let Matt maybe speak to, some thoughts behind that being a first and only choice, and then splitting the difference, from the 50% that was proposed. So.
Yeah, so that has been brought up. We've had kind of mixed comments on that, both going first and only choice or having it as a second choice. I think a big part of that's that we need to look at is to see how it's subscribed, whether those permits are undersubscribed or oversubscribed. We'll know that after the first year, I guess. And the other thing to keep in mind that is part of the proposal for those is that persons that apply for and get those archery permits for those areas, those will be the only areas they'll be able to hunt antlered bull during that particular season or that archery season. Or if they have a permit, it's being proposed that if they have a permit for the rifle season as well, that those areas where they draw their permits will be the only areas that they will be able to hunt antlered bull that year during those seasons. So specific to the archery season for archery ones, if you have an either sex, say a person drew a either sex permit, they would then be bound to that district for the archery and the general season, since that permit is valid in both seasons.
Thanks, Robbie. We can jump to the next.
Okay, thanks, Eric. All right, next one, we're gonna go with Mike M. When you're ready, go ahead.
Hey there, guys. I just wanted to say thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate everybody taking the night to present this to us today. I'll hit you with a couple of different ones here. The first one concerning the new proposed 565 unit and how the migratory nature of those elk in that unit, how they're going to affect the objective numbers, or if you guys think they'll affect the objective numbers later in the year as those elk transition into 525.
We want to, Matt, kick that one off to Justin, or?
Yeah,
I think so.
go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Mike, this is Justin. So that's a good question about the objectives, and that new 565, it currently has an objective in the elk plan as a one herd unit within old district 560. So there is already an objective there. I believe it's 400 elk. I can't remember right off, but either 300 or 400. So we kind of have some direction there already in terms of elk management. And, you know, some years those elk stay up in that upper boulder all winter, depending on the severity of the winter. Other years, like you mentioned, a lot of them do drop out down into that lower country around Natural Bridge. But given the direction we had for season setting, it made the most sense to make that its own district instead of trying to keep treating it as a portion. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, and then I guess I'll just jump over to my next kind of bigger picture topic here. And that's the increase in the that, like Eric was talking about, the increase of 50% to the bull tags, and then going unlimited cow permits on public lands also. Just how, if you guys have, I'm sure you guys have, but how do you see that affecting, you know, hunter enjoyment, pressure on the public lands, specifically these units with limited public lands like the new 535 and 590? You know, what's that going to turn those little pockets of public land into?
Yeah, this is a question that's popped up several times, and you know, you're right on spot with that. It's difficult. We have limited public land in Region 5 especially, and limited access for elk on those lands. And just like we're seeing all over Montana, use of public lands for trying to get on and hunt elk are being more and more utilized by the public. So crowding, the basic, basically what you're talking about is overcrowding on public land areas where people can get to elk, and it is a concern. But overall, in those over objective elk areas, it's very difficult to get to objective without having hunters on the landscape and having tags available for hunters to go out and harvest elk when they can. And another thing we just have to keep in mind, there are, people that do have access to hunt private lands, whether it's friends, family, etc., and giving them the opportunity to take more elk obviously helps reduce those numbers. So we are aware of the overcrowding on public lands, and it is of concern to us. It's not something we ignore.
Mike, if you got one more, we can grab that. Otherwise, we might open it up. And then if there's time, we can circle back too. So.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate that. I think I'll let you guys kick it off to the next guys. I'd maybe just say, maybe we could consider, like Eric said, less tag allotment on the public and, more tag allotment on the private. But yeah, let's kick it over to somebody else if they want.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And if there's time, feel free to jump back in at the end too if you've got more or think of some other things. So.
All right, next up, we're going to go with Caleb. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I've same kind of question along the lines of this 920 replacement. I think I'm with Mike and Eric about not wanting that to be increased 50% because, you're already at an 82% draw rate. And I, like these guys, the overcrowding, I'm just basically going to reiterate everything they said. The overcrowding is, in my experience this past year, was not just annoying, but also dangerous. And most guys that bow hunt, as y'all know, we bow hunt mainly to avoid that. So I'm wondering if y'all have considered any separate private land tag so that we're not having to compete with these guys that are hunting private land with our quotas and, out there in real time.
Yeah. So Matt, do you want to go through which of those cow tags are private and which ones are both? You're on mute yet.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, you're on mute.
Oh, there you go.
I was
Matt.
actually typing an answer to somebody else on one of these questions. The question was which of the cow tags is on private land and on public, is that right?
Well, just to talk about that. So one of the questions was, have we thought about having some tags that are, more limited to private and to help reduce some of that public land crowding? And so there are some licenses out there that are just cows on private land. So.
Right. And so the newly proposed 900 Cal B license is valid for all seasons, all open seasons on private land. So that one specifically applies to private land only. The 005 does apply to both public and private lands. In these districts that were, some of these districts were more than 1,000% over objective. We do encourage the opportunity for people to kill and harvest elk where they can find them, whether they're on public or private. So a lot of it's, when you're that far over objective, a lot of it is to try to not, basically handcuff people in harvesting an elk that needs to be harvested to reduce the population by handcuffing them to either private or public lands.
That kind of get to what you were thinking there, Caleb, or?
Yeah, yeah, mostly another question, this may not be the platform to ask this, but is there any consideration for kind of how you have block management sign in? And I know you can limit the amount of people that sign into that block management. Have you ever considered anything like that for public?
Not that I'm aware of. That might be, maybe that's been something discussed in the past, but not that I'm aware of. I don't know, Sean, if you've had that ever entertained throughout last 20, 30 years.
I don't think we've ever had any discussion of that, and I'm not sure how we as an agency could affect limiting hunters on public land, on federal land. I don't think we would have that capacity. We would have to work with the Forest Service and jump through a lot of hoops to do that.
I do
Yeah.
understand that.
So our limited would be on the number of available licenses, basically, which is kind of what Caleb is and the others have kind of said is, well, if we want to manage some of this access, then limited numbers of permits or licenses is kind of something to consider. But at the same time, like Matt had said, when we're so far over objective, it really is, once we get closer to objective, then we can start bringing in some of that management. As you saw in 555, 502, there's limited draws. There's still some unlimited opportunities down there, but we expect that crowding won't be quite so bad down there, but definitely heard a lot about crowding from this year and some past years as well. So yeah.
Anything else, Caleb?
Oh, not right now. I'm sure I'll think of something in a minute.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we got Chris. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you guys for putting this on tonight. I guess I don't even know where I want to start. The shoulder season that we do, I don't know why we're not running more of a damage roster type of hunt where you draw, because without access, we keep pumping these tags up, but we're not getting different results. That unlimited 5 tag, I guess I don't understand why you don't change that from a tag of that to any valid elk tag, because right now I have a cow tag for region 7 that I didn't fill, and I could go hunt here, but I can't. So if you need elk killed, you're essentially closing the door there. And my other question, I guess, would be with going away from the 900, I feel like we're bottlenecking us residents where we have to choose a unit. And I don't understand why we haven't gone more that way with the non-residents and make the non-residents draw by like a region. So we give out however many non-resident elk tags. Well, let's say we give out 5,000 for region 3, 4,000 for region 4, 2,000 for 5, and help displace the non-resident pressure that we're seeing on top of all that by doing that. I guess that would be my few quick questions for tonight.
Man,
Yeah, that is something we could consider doing. I don't know, the 900 tag, if you do have access to private lands, I guess that would be an option if you haven't already purchased, your limit of 3 licenses. So that proposal for private land, that would cover some of that if you were trying to harvest an elk in region 5. And if for your example, you had a tag in region 7, that is a valid question. It has been done with other management hunts. It's being done actually right now with some deer hunts and a CWD management hunt over in region 3 down in the Dillon area, where they're allowing the use of other deer licenses from pretty much anywhere in the state to come in and harvest either sex deer for CWD data. But that's That is a valid idea, especially in areas where we just really need to get elk killed.
Okay.
So how do you, am I still unmuted or?
No, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, because that, the 900 tag thing for me is great because I hunt in the 500s during the week. And then I go down to the 700s and hunt. I hunt 7 days a week during archery season. I mean, I would love to see it be, if you draw this archery tag, you have to kill a bull with it. I think doing that alone would help disperse pressure because you're not going to get guys from the eastern side of the state because they can't kill a bull there. So they don't want to deal with it here.
Yeah, and one of the big reasons for pulling that 900 archery permit, Chris, was we were really getting a lot of comments from hunters, especially in Region 7, that, you know, people from all over the state were drawing a 900 archery permit, and many of them were getting concentrated to large areas of public land in Region 7. So we were getting a lot of comments and complaints from hunters, especially in Region 7, that there was a lot of overcrowding there. And I don't know if you're hunting elk, you know, predominantly in Region 5, and maybe you have a private land area or somewhere that you're hunting them in Region 5, maybe you're not experiencing that overcrowding. We were also getting those same comments from public land hunters in Region 5 with the 900 permit. The limited amount of public land in Region 5, they were also experiencing overcrowding and were wanting that to be more.
There's a region I hunt, Region 5 during the week and Region 7 on the weekends.
Okay. Yep.
If it wasn't an overcrowding issue, I would hunt Region 5 on the weekends. So I just have more time to travel, and there's, like you're saying, a bigger lot of land, and a guy can get away from people. He's just got to be willing to work at it. I mean, we did great down there this year, and I can't think of seeing anybody when we were archery hunting in the immediate area of where we were hunting.
Yeah.
But I put a lot of boot leather down.
Anything else, Chris?
No, that's it. I'm past my time.
Thank you.
So thank you guys again. I appreciate it.
All right, now we're going to go with Bob. Bob, go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, what was the reason for taking the permit off of the southern part of 580 and leaving the permits on some other areas that were over objective?
Justin, if you would take that one, I'm gonna keep typing on some of these other ones.
Sure, I can do that. So as far as these proposals go, biologists like myself had some direction from our Helena headquarters in terms of what districts we were going to propose to remove those permits that you're talking about. And those two criteria that we had to look at, one you mentioned was, is the district over objective, which 580 is. And then the other part of that was, is there any language in the elk management plan directing us to manage for older age class bulls in those permitted districts? And there was no language in the current elk plan for that portion of 580 south of Sweetgrass Creek that directed us to manage towards older age class bulls. So since we hit those criteria, that was kind of an automatic signal to propose removing those either sex permits in that southern portion of 580 as well as 570 and 500. Did I capture what you were after there?
Yeah, you do realize, of course, this is going to lead to a decrease in the over age class bulls in the southern part of 580. I guess my point is I'm kind of a if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality.
No, that's a very valid comment, Bob.
Yeah, and again, remind folks too that, remember to get those comments in, in writing, either through online or mailing those in too. So we're definitely taking this into when we have our internal conversations, but to really get those in there so that the folks that are making the final decisions get to see it. It is to get it in on writing. So.
Do you have anything else, Bob?
No,
Thank you for your comment.
Yep. Thanks, Bob.
All right, now we're gonna go Brad. When you are ready, go ahead.
There, am I in?
Yep, go
Can you
ahead.
hear me?
Brad. Yep, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, I guess my question would be, and then I'll morph into a comment, is on the email that they sent out telling people of this meeting, they said that these were arrived at through a scientific process. I'd like to know what studies, processes, history in other states were used. And did they open up enough access to actually reduce elk numbers? Which goes to my comment, I guess, that what I'm seeing here is when you go to all general license holders can hunt a bull, you have 17,000 non-resident hunters with the combination license. You have a split off, you have those with split off deer and those elk licenses and their youth and non-resident youth licenses, all of which would face the same access problems that we do unless they hire an outfitter or they pay somebody to access their land and be able to hunt. So all we're really accomplishing here is shutting down more access, more monetization of the wildlife resource, and more reduction of opportunity for residents. So where if you want to hunt a bull elk, you're in trouble. We have greatly expanded, it seems to me, the shoulder seasons, particularly the early shoulder seasons, have been underperforming. So to expand that, to get a greater underperformance, but be able to claim that more access and opportunity is there, when in reality it simply does not exist, I think we're building ourselves a serious problem. When you go from, as what was it, 411, I believe, 20, where you go up 50% in rifle tags. Well, the problem in 411 is, and 410 and a lot of others, is the first hour of shooting drives the elk from cooperators' land and public land to the Wilkes brothers and the Gulfs, and they stay there all season long. It's not a matter of landowner tolerance. They want the elk there. The Gulf family is very clear that if they allow you, a non-paying person, to hunt a cow, it'll be deep in the ranch. They don't want you driving the elk off the ranch. I think the model and what you're trying to accomplish is outdated by 20 years. If you want to solve the problem, you would have to go with resident tags. You would have to reduce non-resident buying access, either directly or through an outfitter. This increases that tremendously. The political wins you are seeing now are nothing compared to what you'll see a year after this is implemented. In many cases, the archery tags are moved around to where it's hard to see what's happening, but there seems to be a general increase. Well, the numbers are very clear, and they're from your own archives. Resident archers are successful 10% of the time. Rifle hunters for elk are successful 13% of the time, and non-resident archers are successful 20% of the time. So as those archers increase, and there's no limit on them, right now we're 53,680 tags. So 700 fewer Montanans bought those tags. 700 more non-residents bought those tags. So we're displacing the resident hunter with the non-resident hunter to please very, very wealthy, in some cases, landowners that want to cater to the non-residents. And I don't see anything in this plan that addresses that whatsoever. That's the problem. If it's not going to be addressed, you're not going to get a solution.
Right. So Brad, I can take the first piece of that. And so the ask was for the biologists to look at this and biologically what's sound in their management areas and what that would look like. And so that's part of the piece that comes in. The next part of the piece is the legislature, the commission, the governor, those that are elected by the folks in Montana. And so that's how some of those other pieces get built into there through that social part. And so what we were told is, we'll manage through that social piece. The biologists get us the biological piece that's sustainable, and then we can move from there. So with that, I think the rest of yours really lies in making sure that you get that captured in a comment and get that put in so that they can have that. It's good that you've got your numbers and the research there. So you should expect that to be a pretty good comment. So that.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I think you misunderstood my question, which is not, is this going to be scientifically approached? I want to see posted the scientific rationale, the studies that have been done in other states, the studies that have been done here, the actual biological data that we are using to show that this plan will reduce elk numbers, when the only way to reduce elk numbers is to increase access. Will the biological data support that this will, regardless of what the governor wants or the legislature wants or anybody else, or the director wants because he's appointed, will this address being 1,000% over what we think is a reasonable number? How do we arrive at a reasonable number? Are these lands being overgrazed where these elk can't make it in the wintertime? I don't see that. Is landowner intolerance for elk there when they won't allow anybody to hunt, or they allow only those that pay, or they allow only family members? And if they got 800 head elk when it's all done, they're happy with it. So, has the definition of tolerance changed? I don't know that there's been any study on that. I assume if this is being biologically driven, studies must have been done. If we do this, we will get the following results. I would like to see those posted.
Yep. So we can share that with the staff. I'm not sure, since most of that is, the social part is the access, the elimination and the availability of tags is the biological piece. So the biological piece is sound and it's there and it's based off the surveys for the numbers. So the other piece that you're talking about really isn't the biological piece. But with that, Brad, we do need to move on. We ran that one quite a few more minutes past back and forth. So we can circle back if we got more time. If not, there's additional opportunity. So.
Mike, just a question that has popped up a couple of times on typed in questions is, with the current proposals, did the commission keep the unlimited outfitter sponsored non-resident tags they approved for only the 2021 season? To my knowledge, I haven't seen that has been proposed to be done again. I don't know if anybody else has seen anything different. Is that correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything different on that either. So yep. Okay, Robbie, next
Thanks,
one,
Matt.
please.
Next in line is Brett.
Thank you. So I just got a question about, actually I got a few questions, but one of them is the 595-21 tag, either sex, that's valid in 502, 535, 555, and 590. Where some of these other tags are kind of a little less restrictive. I know that 502 is over objective. I'm not sure that 555 is. I'm not sure that we need to, I don't know why we need to include 535 and 590 and 555 and 502. I have that question. Then I have some other questions in some of the other regions where they have some unlimited cow tags that are in region 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I don't understand that. I don't understand the rationale on that.
Hey, Matt, do you want to kick over the 502, 555 to Sean and then pick up the unlimited cow tag piece after that, or?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll just do the unlimited cow tag piece first. So for other regions, there's other, other people in other regions can answer your questions better. What we speak to is specifically the Region 5 stuff. So I would encourage you to reach out to the other regions and ask those questions. They do have scheduled meetings, some virtual and some in person scheduled. So I encourage you to go utilize those platforms to get your questions answered on those. And then I'll let Sean speak to the other portion of the 502, 535.
Okay, Matt, I was talking about like 535 and I think 590, the Elk B license 900. That's
Okay. And your question, as far as, I guess, what was the question again on that one?
the valid on private lands, and they're in like 260, 411, 417, I mean, 5, 4, 2, basically District 2, District 4, 5, 6, 7. Why can't we limit those numbers to some regions instead of having a tag that you can pick up and use in all these different regions? But in some areas with an antlerless elk tag, you can't do that. I'm confused by that.
Okay.
I'd like the idea of limiting the numbers. I don't like the idea of spreading them all out. So
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So the 900 is based on hunting districts, statewide hunting districts that are over objective by at least 200% in those hunting districts. So all of the hunting districts that it would be valid for are districts that are over objective by that amount.
Yeah, and the reason for that, these are the private lands ones. So if there gets to be access, this is an opportunity for those folks to be able to knock back those cows, which really are the driver for the populations more so than the bulls for sure. So this was one where it had to be that criteria over that 200% and on the private land. So.
okay, thank you.
Yep. Did you get it?
Additionally, on that, just one follow-up on that, those are designed to be valid for use in any open season. That's the only other stipulation that came with that proposal.
Okay.
Yeah,
The next question.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the 595.21 unlimited include, to be included into 535 and 590. I understand that. I just don't know. I don't know why we need to lump 502 into 550 and 555 into 535 and 590.
Yeah, and Sean, if you want to take that one and the rationale that went into that, that'd be great.
Well, what we were doing with that either sex archery tag was just limiting limited in the Region 5 portion of that to the same distribution that we had with the 900 tag in Region 5, essentially. So it really doesn't change doesn't change the distribution of the either sex tag, except that it reduces it to Region 5.
Gotcha. Okay.
If I don't know that I'm being clear about that, but
No, I do want to comment that in general, I like the idea that you guys have tried to archery wise, either sex, keep those in specific regions. I think it's a right step. So generally, I do like what I'm seeing, and that's my comments. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brett.
All right, next up, we got Mo. Go ahead, Mo, when you're ready.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a just quick point and a couple quick questions. First of all, both Chris and Brad both hit on number one things in my worrisome about all these objectives and all these proposals. So I think they both brought up some very, very good points that I would want the commission to strongly consider before adopting these. One of my questions is, as a born, raised Montana hunter, been here very active in a lot of things my whole life, been around a while. The 900 tag, to me, the mystery question here is why would it be on private land only? Because the animals of Montana belong to us, the taxpayers. And why would you do it on private land only? They tried that in 410 a few years ago to try to kill elk, and it limited hunters. They couldn't shoot them when they were on the public land. They had to wait till they crossed the fence and got on the private land. And it didn't work. So they opened it up. They lowered part of the deal and they opened it up so you could hunt them anywhere, because the objective is supposed to be to knock elk numbers down. So that 900 tag makes no sense to me on only private land. That should just be unlimited tag anywhere if you want to kill elk. Because to me, when you limit it to private land, it leans towards the concerns that Brad brought up. And so, I mean, that to me, that's a strong question. It's something that should be considered, because I don't think that's the right way to get elk numbers down by having unlimited tags that go to private land, when we know that a lot of private landowners are going to have their own group that come and hunt there, and that's it. And also, it's a way to help the ones that don't allow much hunting, if any, unless it's paid hunting or outfitted hunting, to get some of their cow elk numbers down to help their herd that they're holding on their private property. That's what it looks like to me. I've been pretty active in fishing game things all my life, and I don't like the way it smells. So that's my question on that one.
Yeah, you get Matt or others, you can correct me. So that we still have the 6,000 that are limited for the public land and or could be used on private land, but that's where that 005 comes in. So if those elk are moving around on the landscape, it does provide some opportunity on those public lands. So, and that was the increase of those two other tags. So that's one way that we're trying to approach that. And we'll see if this proposal makes it through and then what that looks like on the landscape. But that's one way of trying to address that. The unlimited is the way, knowing that a lot of those elk are on those private lands, to be able to get tags into those folks' hands that are in there doing that, and encourage them to not just take the bull, but also take a cow or two. So,
well, then, in my opinion, it should be the reverse. You should have unlimited on that whole area for anywhere. And then on private land, give them extra tags that they put in for on private land. I think you guys got it backwards. It's just my opinion.
okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, and again, just reminding folks, make sure you get your stuff, the comments online or emailed in, and we're certainly, as I mentioned before, we'll carry these in some of our thoughts and discussions. But if you truly want those in there, that's where you need to get them. So thanks. Did you have some more, Mo, before we move?
No, that's good for now. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mo.
All right, Mike, we're back to people who have commented, have other questions. You want to get into those?
Why don't we quick have Matt run down through the ones that he's been working on online?
Perfect.
And then we'll circle back to that. We've got plenty of time, I think. So
Okay.
Matt, if you want to go through what you've been working on with the online ones,
Okay,
questions, and your response.
yeah, a bunch of them I've kind of answered already. Let's see, Daniel asks, what are the current elk objectives adopted? And will objective numbers be reevaluated next year with the elk plan? Yeah, so, in the spirit of saving time, I'm not going to run through what all the current elk objectives adopted are. I will answer the second part of that question and tell you that, yes, there is a new elk management plan group together They are coming up with a new elk management plan. And hopefully over the next year, most of that elk plan will be completed. And there will most definitely be new objective numbers associated with many of these hunting districts. Things that go into that are, tolerance, is the elk tolerated more by communities of people more now than they used to be before, for example. And obviously the biological carrying capacity of elk and et cetera. Those are all things that will be evaluated to determine what those elk objective numbers are. So hopefully that answers that one, Daniel. Mike Mershon, Matt, in reference to your
Matt,
answer.
one of his piece was what year were the current elk objectives adopted? I believe that was.
Oh, yeah, it was 2005. I'm sorry.
Yep. And if folks want, so this might be some of the information that Brad was looking for too, is, where do you have this information and what kind of science is out there? So if you go to the conservation tab and then click on elk or any of the other species, you can start getting into those statewide maps, the distributions, what districts are over what percentage. So that's all available online. I don't know if people have been digging around with that much, but just to show you real quick, so people are wondering where we get those numbers. There's several ways that the biologists have put those together for people to look at. And so those conservation plans are there and there'll be updates on that. So anyway, I just want to let folks know that a lot of that stuff's already posted. So go ahead, Matt.
I'll answer this one live. This one's Mike Mershon. Corey asked the same question earlier. They're wondering how, with like the unlimited elk archery, how the 10% will be calculated for non-residents. In the past, unlimited licenses, and Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Ashley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, the total number of resident subscriptions to a permit has been added up. And then the percentage allotted to non-residents, that 10% allotted to non-residents is based off of that total number of resident subscriptions. And then that those licenses are all drawn, the residents are drawn first, and then then 10% are held out for non-resident draw. Does that sound right to you, Sean?
I'm not sure that that was my understanding. I think with an unlimited license, with an unlimited permit, there cannot be a restriction on non-residents. There has to be a cap in order for there has to be a cap on the numbers before a non-resident percentage kicks in.
Okay.
So like our bighorn sheep, our unlimited bighorn sheep licenses, 20-some% of them go to non-residents. There's no way to cap that.
Okay, so it's only on limited permits that go. So if limited permits go to surplus, or if they're undersubscribed and they go to surplus, then limited permits can be subscribed more than 10% by non-residents as well then?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So
I see we've got Ron on. So Ron, if you want to pitch in on any of this, feel free to raise your hand and Robbie can let you in. If not, we'll keep rolling if you think we're good there. So. Okay. So Robbie, if Ron happens to jump up, we can grab him. But
I'll keep an eye on it there.
yeah. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Mike, Corey asked, you mentioned that you're hoping to print out the new regulations by March. Should some of these proposals be changed based on these comments? Will there be yet another opportunity to comment on adjustments to be made prior to finalizing. Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the commission meeting on February 4th, they could actually make comments at that meeting. Is that correct?
Yep, they can make comments up to that. Once things are adopted at that meeting, then we'll be off and running for the next 2 years. So we can make some minor adjustments in that following year, but largely that would be done at that point. So in this comment period's been extended to the 21st to capture this, and then comment again at February 4th at the commission meeting. So, yep.
You got all the other ones, Matt, on there?
Let's see. Oh, Mo Hinman asked who can be on the Elk Planning Committee. And my understanding is that committee's already been set. Ashley can tell you who is on there now, as she is a participant on that. Ashley, can you shed some light on that for Mo?
Sure. Yeah, I think the public portion is already concluded. That was what was going on last year when we had that elk working group, and it was Lindsay Parsons and Brian Wakeling were kind of running through all that. So we took those guiding principles from that group, and then we're working through it with internal folks. So there's a biologist from every region that was kind of working through things. And I think now it's being looked at by, wildlife managers and those above us. And so I think the process continues from there. I haven't gotten an update for a little while where we're sitting. So I think it's still kind of getting reviewed up above biologist level.
So you can correct me, Ashley, but once that document's ready for public review, it will go out for comments and go through a public process as well. Correct?
Yes. Yep. It would all have public comment on it and then it would have to get adopted by the Fish and Wildlife Commission to be our formal elk plan.
Yep. Okay. All right, Matt, if we're caught up there, we can start cycling through some hands again. So.
There's a new one on there too, Matt.
I'll go back to Daniel had a question. He asked where if elk objective numbers for each district can be added to the regulation somewhere. Daniel, those elk objective numbers are in the elk plan, which can be found online. Matter of fact, that's where I first looked it up, was online, and we can definitely get you pointed in the right direction. If you want to look that up online at any time, you can call into the office here and I can help you with that. That's not an issue. Let's see.
You see Connor's question on there, Matt?
Yeah. Connor's question is to clarify the unlimited permit structure. There is no cap on non-residents. Yep, I misunderstood that, Connor. That is correct. There is no non-resident cap on unlimited permits.
You good, Matt?
Yeah, for now, I need to kind of sort back through and make sure I got everybody's.
We got a new hand raised here, so we're gonna go to Eric. Go ahead, Eric, when you're ready.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up on that 10% cap. So if I understand right, by going from say the 900 permit or any limited quota permit to unlimited, that throws out that 10% cap. So theoretically, in any given archery permit or area, there could be more than 10% non-residents. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, Eric. Yes.
Oh, and I mean, that seems like a pretty significant issue. And I've kind of, I guess I didn't really understand it that well until this meeting. So I appreciate the clarification, but that seems kind of significant. And I guess the second part of that is the unlimited kind of a done deal, or is there still discussion of maybe a high level of quota to remedy that concern?
Yeah, I would say all of these are, none of these are finalized. I haven't heard any discussions that say this is it, doesn't matter. So I think all these comments getting in have good opportunity to be considered and based on what else they're hearing. So
All
it's
right, thank you.
worth getting those comments in for sure. So
Thanks,
Thanks.
Eric. All right, we're gonna go back. Chris, you're up again. Go ahead.
With all these cow tags, the unlimited cow tags and all that, to me, it just seems like a dirty money grab, be it from the state or the landowners. I mean, when the shoulder season went into effect, I remember it was, oh, so-and-so let you go on and shoot a cow on his place for $1,000. And we just keep pumping these tags out. We're not getting anywhere. Could you show me another state in the West that allows us to pursue elk like this? I hunt multiple states every year, and it's just insane. This is where the pressure's coming from, is we're creating it. Then I guess with this unlimited tag, I mean, does this really seem like a better option than a 900 where you'd have to fill up your bull tag with that?
Matt, you have any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I guess the overall thought I have is we're trying to get elk numbers down, and the only way to really significantly do that is by harvesting elk. So we have to put tags in the hands of people who are standing in front of elk to harvest them.
I mean, you could give 10,000 tags for this unit. It ain't going to make a difference when they hold up on a ranch. The only people that have benefited out of this point's Fish and Game at $20 a tag, and the rancher for $1,000 a cow.
Yep, I hear your comment. The one thing I will suggest is make sure you make your comment official by doing it via email on the link that Mike showed you, or on the comment platform that Mike showed you.
Okay.
That's important.
Have they put any thought into, like you guys are bringing up with these unlimited tags? Because I mean, it's gonna flood these areas with non-residents. You know, I mean, even the 700s, like everybody wants to hunt it because there's a 400-inch pole on every section and no grizzly bears.
Yeah, we hear you.
Anything else, Chris?
Oh, that's it.
Thanks for
I'll
your
quit.
comment.
So Chris, I
Yelling at
just
you
got
guys.
input. That's my brother-in-law was going to get on here and say that tonight. So
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, if you open that up like that, it's going to be bad.
yeah, it's kind of getting stuck between that hard spot of way over objective and looking for ways to change that
I know,
equation for sure.
I've been wanting for 3 or 4 years, though. I've wanted to see it go to elk tags are like the mule deer tags, or if you draw a bull tag, that's your shot. That's what you get.
Yep. Nope. Make sure you get those in. So
All right. Thank you guys again.
Thanks,
I
Chris.
appreciate it.
yeah, thanks, Chris.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I should buy you guys a beer if I ever run into any of you boys in the wild. I appreciate you. I just want to, I think you're hearing us, but I'm just going to keep holding your feet to the fire here. Is the justification of the increasing of all these either sex bull permits, you know, is it coming from the biological or the social side of the objectives? You know, we keep saying we're trying to get to the objectives, and there's a social and a biological side to that. Well,
Yep.
you know,
Take a quick stab, and then you guys can fix it all up after I take a shot at this. So biologically, if you want to manage the herd, you need to get your cow numbers down. So that's why you're seeing this flood of opportunity for cows. Most people that are up with archery, you know, they're going to work for that bull first. So archery hasn't been a great tool for managing populations, but a tool for getting into bulls, basically. So if there's opportunity on some of these ranches to get a few more people in there to help move these off, because they're not all folks that are trying to harbor. Some of these people have it, and they're trying to keep moving through. So it does give them a bit more opportunity to do that. Some of these herds are gotten so far over objective that some of these ranches have more bulls than cows on them. And so that's been a challenge with just having this, more cows and less bulls. So we've heard that from a few of the ranches going, help us get rid of a few more of these bulls. And, we're not outfitted. We don't do this. And so there is a little bit on each side of that. The social piece comes in more when, are you trying to manage for trophy bulls and location of bulls and all that, that gets to be a bit more. And that's where there's a lot of dancing going on. What kind of opportunities are there for those people that don't allow a lot of folks on? And if it's easier for them to get a few tags, maybe we get a few more people on for cows. And so I think there's some hope or anticipation of that that's been talked about a little bit. So that's a mild stab at this, but yep, I think you're on with, the cows is the biological piece and the rest gets to be more social. So Matt or anybody else, any of the other bios have got more input, you're welcome to share it. So.
No, I think you covered the biggest part of that. And the biggest part of that is to reduce elk populations, you got to shoot cows. And that is why we want tags in the hands of people that are standing in front of elk to harvest elk. So I think you covered it pretty well from my end. Any of the other biologists can certainly add into that if you like.
Yeah. So however we get to the desired number, whether it's a change in the elk plan or a reduction in numbers to get us back to the 2005 piece, you can see how the regulations look much different between our areas that are less than that 200% over objective or close to objective, 3 or 4 permits, limited permits, got some general opportunity. Those areas that are way over, pretty complicated, a whole different suite of tags and a whole lot of different thoughts about how to pull those together. And so it's pretty easy to pick out which districts are creating problems by looking at the number of license types. And so if we were to get these back to objective, either way, you would start to see those numbers change and the license types that are available change. So part of it is getting there. And then I think we start to be able to address more of that crowding and some of that. But like Matt's been trying to share is, somehow, some way we've got to get some numbers down. And these, we are legislatively required to do whatever we can to get those down. And that's where some of this challenge has been coming in. So yep.
Thanks, guys. Okay. I might have screwed up the order here, but with who raised their hand first, but go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, like Mike just said, having to kind of shift through the legislative that y'all are required to meet. Is there anything that you as biologists that are having to dance around the political and social side of this? Is there anything that you guys would recommend us going on and publicly commenting to the commission that maybe they're not hearing y'all on? Because I have a lot of respect for the biologists and how y'all affect the regulations, and I feel like y'all do a pretty good job. I'm from another state and I've hunted other states, and this is the most reasonably regulated state that I've ever been in. It seems like there's a good reason for every single regulation. So is there anything that you guys are getting a lot of resistance on from a commission or a committee that we could go on and maybe affect change that y'all are struggling with? I don't know if y'all can say this on a recording or anything.
Well,
but
Chris, I think the one thing that I'll kind of re-stress this again is at some point when elk are so far over objective, the biological part of, the real biological concerns become disease, for example, or elk that are over carrying capacity. And when they're on private lands, obviously, and they're not moved off those private lands, that becomes very hard for biologists to manage with any success. So everybody knows it. There's no secrets in the room. The biggest issue around harvesting elk and keeping them at or under objective is having access for hunters to go harvest elk. And it's not, I think it's a lot of different people trying to work together to come up with solutions. Obviously, the solutions are, the thoughts that we've had in the past, they're just not working because we don't have access to harvest elk. So I think, some of the biggest things we can do is work as a group to try to work with landowners to get more and more access to harvest elk. And that's proven to be difficult. And it, when there's money and associated with elk, it's tough. But those are the biggest things I think people can work toward. And I wouldn't say, it's just something that everybody kind of has to get on board with, and that may be difficult to do.
I understand that. Is there anything that would limiting outfitter tags not kind of affect that in the way that you're discussing here?
That's been done in the past, and we're kind of, we just go round and round. Limiting outfitter tags hasn't opened access for elk hunters.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it would. I assume there's still the money wrapped up in that, and it's tougher. We said there's 20 guys on here, and I assume most of us are bow hunters. I just feel like if there was any kind of anything we could do as far as getting on and publicly commenting officially, that I assume that we all would be willing to do that.
Yeah, and I think any of your comments are good and valued and listened to, and I would, encourage you guys to keep making those comments and things. And, one of the big things is perspective, the landowner perspective. And that is, if they're a traditional agricultural landowner and they battle with elk crushing fences and eating hay and eating, grazing off their pastures and things like that, they typically are all about letting people come on to, hunt those elk, harvest those elk, put enough pressure on those elk to move them off their property. In Montana, things have changed so much. We have a lot of non-traditional landowners in the area. And the fact is many of them are fine with having a lot of elk on their place and those elk not moving one bit. So, those are things to keep in mind. And those are just some of the issues that make this struggle pretty difficult for access.
I understand that.
Yeah. So one of the other things that, if you wanted to have the breadth of the conversation, it's like limited to only cows in those areas that are over objective. And, that has not made it through any legislation process, any commission process, but that's one that gets batted around a lot. I'm not sure, like I said, we have some places where there's so many elk and they end up being just bulls on some of these ranches that get kicked off. So playing with some of that and looking at these producers that are still trying to make a living, and then we limit some of that, it does make it a challenge for us to even get in without doing special game damage hunts or kill permits and things like that. So it is a struggle for us when we're issuing kill permits that, it's too bad we can't get these in the hands of hunters and make this a little bit easier and simpler on our end as well. So
have you ever thought about doing a kill permit that me, just your average hunter that isn't hunting on private land? I primarily hunt public land. Is there a kill permit or a deprivation permit that I could apply for, and then I could carry that tag to a private landowner and say, I drew this destruction permit that I would be willing to use on your property. Something that we could carry to them. That way they don't have to go through the hassle of getting those destruction permits.
Yeah, there is the game damage roster. Robbie, do you want to go through that since you manage that question fairly often?
As far as just how to sign up and things like that?
Yep.
Yeah, if you, I'm sure most of you probably done it. If you can log into your MyFWP account, then you can get on there. But you get between antelope, deer, and elk, you get the three species, and you can choose one district for each of those. And then I'm sure for those of you that participated, they send out an email or a letter if you've been drawn. And then at that point, I'm not super into the logistics of how, I think each one's a little bit different. If I'm wrong on, the landowner can choose a certain percentage, correct? And then the rest of it goes to that list. Is that how that goes, Mike, on each one?
I'm new enough to the game damage stuff. You know, Justin or Ashley work.
Yeah,
on
they
this
would know more.
regularly. They probably have a bit more to add to that too, but so there is a way to get onto those lists. So Ashley or Justin, you got anything you want to add to that conversation?
Yeah, those lists. So you get on the list, and then depending on what type of either damage hunt or management hunt we use to fix the complaint, that triggers different percentages. So if it's a supplemental game damage hunt, those are limited to 12 antlerless only licenses, and the landowner can pick up to 75% of those. If it's just a regular game damage hunt or management hunt, landowners can pick up to 25% of the hunters participating. So they could pick up to 25% of folks not on the roster.
That's what I was going for.
I've never participated in those. I didn't know, I guess, of that program. I just know that a lot of ranchers who I have gained access on, they're not in block management. They're not in any kind of program. They just kind of handle their problem, by night and kind of shoot, shovel, and shut up kind of thing.
Yep.
And
So
I was just wondering.
Part of
Go ahead,
the
Shane.
requirement is that they allow a certain amount of public access. And that's determined with the area wildlife biologist and area enforcement, area conservation officer, who make those recommendations once a complaint comes in. So some of those landowners that don't really let in any public hunting, it's all fee-based or something like that. It is a challenge for them to get some of that assistance, but for those that let folks in, and there's a fair number of them that aren't in block management that do let a fair number of folks get in that do qualify and can get into those game damage hunts. So.
Perfect. That answers everything I had. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Caleb. All right. Chris, go ahead.
I want to harp on you guys again, but when I was hunting in Wyoming this year, they have on the tag, it's kind of like our bear tag. It's got one for the carcass, one for the horns. And then there's a third section that you can give to a landowner. So if any landowner lets you on and gives you access, you fill out all your information, you give him the coupon, and the state pays him like 25 or $50 for allowing people on. Have you guys considered doing something like that with these unlimited tags? But say, give the landowner, even a tag, let him kill an elk any time of the year he wants on his place with the tag, only for his place if, say, he lets 20 guys on and harvest cows.
Yep. So I would say that would be a good comment to get in. So they really are looking, and then legislatively, there'll be a push for how to incentivize access. And so that might be one that could certainly be considered. I'm not sure what the entire suite is so far, but
you take the Wilkes Ranch, and that guy could care less. You could throw a briefcase of cash, $100 bills in him. They don't care. You let him shoot a bonus elk on his place any month out of the year he wants. You might let a bunch of guys on to kill some cows.
Yep, there's a whole mix of some of them will just let you on if they could do it. Others are looking for different incentives. So that's a good one to push up there. And so even getting that as a comment, it'll end up being in front of the commissioners as they try to evaluate and look at ways to incentivize getting access. So whether it's tags or getting a financial bump. So
as a landowner, I get it. Like, we're our own worst enemies as hunters because one bad guy makes us all look like horrible individuals.
Yep. And as landowners, they got to deal with the weeds that come in, all kinds of other things that are going. They're still trying to make a living, variable prices a bit. So
yep. Or somebody, shooting a cow or whatever. It's just ridiculous, the stories you hear. But I mean, I just don't know how you incentivize them to let us on their property other than, you know, because for a lot of these guys, money doesn't matter. It's, you know.
Yep, that's one they're actively struggling with, and I expect we'll be struggling with through the legislative session as well, so.
All right, you guys, well, I appreciate you letting me talk again.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, Chris, this is Ron Howell and Helena. Hey, just to address your question a little bit, there were a couple bills last session to attempt to do what you're suggesting. One of the bills was reimbursing landowners for when their elk were over objectives in that hunting district on their property. The other ideas that came up, neither of these bills passed, were a landowner sponsored type elk license, similar to what we do with deer. Deer isn't used extensively as much anymore, but those types of bills were put up and they did ultimately fail. So I suspect we will see something similar this next year. The part of the goal of this thing, and Chris, I've sensed your frustration, and you've also come up with some good ideas, and that's really what the director's looking for is, you know, we've tried shoulder seasons, we've tried game damage, we've tried about everything under the sun we can think of. And we really need the public's help to come up with some ideas on how to solve this problem, if you will. Again, we can't emphasize enough that commenting here, you know, out loud doesn't do any good. We got to get those comments, you know, online and before the commission. But we really need your guys' ideas on how to address this issue. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Glad you're joined up in tonight too, so.
Okay. Evan, go ahead. Evan, can you hear me?
While we're kind of in the middle of this, you know, a lot of you guys are kind of making some comments online, and we appreciate that, you know, on this particular chat right here. But again, guys, make sure you utilize that email link that Mike pointed out at the beginning of this, and or the comment platform. And you guys can comment on any district in the state, select the region that the district's in, and you can comment on any of those districts by selecting the hunting district that you wish to comment on. Brett Barney, he just made a couple of comments on here. Says during the commission meeting in Helena, the director said he asked the governor to appoint a 17-member council to look at managing elk. I wonder if that was the question about how to get on that council. Mike, you might, I think he's talking about the previous question about getting on the elk plan, or maybe the council was the what he was referring to rather than the elk plan committee.
Yeah, if Ron wants to take that one, I haven't had any conversations with how that's getting set up or where that's at, and it might not be to that point yet either. But yeah, I see Ron's got his hand up, so he might have some input on that from the director's office side. So
Yeah, they are working on that application right now to establish that council. So they haven't got the application process done quite yet, but they are working on that as we speak. So there will be an application process to get on that council.
And so Ron, I'm assuming like our other kind of advisory groups, this will get put out on a news release and picked up saying, hey, apply.
Absolutely, just like that, just similar to PLPW or something like that. All of it will be open to the public and out for comment, that type of thing. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, great. That's kind of, I figured that's where that was headed, but I hadn't heard anything directly. So
yeah, and that question I think was posed by Mel. So hopefully Mel's still on here and maybe he heard that and we got a clearer answer for him on that. And again, Brett, thanks for pointing that that out, that maybe we had our councils and committees all mixed up. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So Robbie, let's try Evan again
Yeah.
and see if he can get on. And if not, if Evan can type his question in too, we can grab it that way.
Thanks,
So-
Ron. All right, go ahead, Evan. Sorry about that, Evan. Give Evan, there we go.
Can you hear me now, Mike?
Yep, there you go, Evan.
Yeah, okay, thank you for letting us visit with you tonight. We've got, our problem is we're in the new district to be 535 and we're east. Our problem is we get, right now tonight as we speak, we've got about 30 bulls. Ranch here, and we've had this problem for years. We let people hunt, and why can't we offer, first of all, a couple tags to us as landowners to shoot people, now when we can get them. In the season, we have them here for a week, and then they're gone. They go up. They just
Hey, Evan, I'm not, so is anybody else catching more of that than maybe I am? So Evan, we're gonna see if we can't get you to zoom in closer to your microphone.
okay.
There you
Hey,
go.
that's better. Give that a shot.
Better?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay, maybe do you want me to start over?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Right now, as we speak tonight, we got about 30 bulls in haystacks here just on our property and the neighbor's property. And our problem is that these bulls, we don't see them during the season, maybe the first week, and they get dispersed out. We offer hunting. I mean, we let people on. Our problem or my question is can we get tags to shoot these bulls at this time of the year to help eliminate just a few of these bulls? That anything that we get out of here would really help us. So is that even possible down the road to maybe look at something like this, or for us landowners to get a few of these tags and shoot maybe a few percentage of these bulls out of here?
So Matt, or one of the bios, want to walk through that one? You're on mute, Matt.
I might let Ashley and Justin, maybe Sean talk to us, or Megan, any of you speak to that one a little bit. I'm trying to answer a question for TJ, type of question in or answer for TJ here, and looking up some information. Ashley, could you take that maybe?
Yeah, I'll defer to the others. I don't have too much game damage in 590, so.
Yeah, so Evan, what you're talking about is some game damage. And so we're just gonna have to work through the eligibility worksheet to see if you allow, enough public access and things to qualify for a game damage hunt, essentially. So we don't have the opportunity to give you, tags just for landowners to do it. Well, I guess we have kill permits, but those are in different circumstances. So we just kind of have to visit with it and see, what would work to adjust the situation. Game damage is not just limited to antlerless, it's meant to target the offending animal. And so where we have those kind of hunts where it's, mostly bulls coming in, we can set up a hunt, that would be either sex licenses that would be available. And so that's where we would draw hunters from the hunt roster. You heard me speak earlier about, you would be able to select up to 25% of however many. So let's say we did a hunt with 10 hunters, you'd be able to pick 2 or 3 of those hunters. So if that's, you or your family member or ranch employee, you would do that. And then the other 7 people would be from that, hunting district 511 hunt roster that signed up for the elk damage roster. That's kind of what we would work through and do. And, we can do that all the way up until February 15th.
So the other program that's out there now, and I've had this conversation with the director for some of the other ranches that are largely bulls, is the 454 program, which a lot of people associate that with you just need to have big dollars and be living at the Snowies, but that is available to other landowners. And, part of that historically had been to get some more cow harvest associated with any of those licenses that would be given out in that process. And so I did ask in a few of these cases, might it be more prudent to allow more bull harvest, but instead of the cows, it's the bulls. And so there's some of that that goes out to the folks that have licenses and they get the phone call. But it does get you as a landowner a handful of tags to be able to do that. So the director's office is working on some policies of how to implement that law that came in, and at the request of the commission on what that might look like. So there's going to be some changes. This year it was as they were coming in, they were kind of hitting those, but that program has potential to do what you're asking and to get that, which would help address some of those and would be able to be used even up through the late season. So the late shoulder season. So
Okay,
that kind of hit
yeah,
what you were
thanks.
thinking, Evan?
Yeah, and Ashley, we can visit too. We've visited before, so that would really help. And we see this every year over here. We do have a little resident herd of cows now, which we haven't had, in the past, but we do have a resident herd. So we're gaining on numbers here in the Oak Creek too also. So thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan. And just to touch a little bit more on the hunt roster, there's a month period every year where sign up is available, and that runs June 15th to July 15th every year. So from June 15th to July 15th, you can log on to your MyFWP, select which hunting district you would like to be added to that roster, and you can sign up that way. So it's that June 15th to July 15th, just so everybody knows that. Eric, go ahead. Oop, you got it, Eric? Yep, go ahead. You there, Eric?
Yeah, I didn't have any more questions. Sorry.
Oh,
I hit
I'm
the
sorry.
button.
Okay,
I may
thanks.
have hit the button accidentally. Sorry.
That's okay. Caleb?
Might be just having hands still up, but
Yeah, I've been trying to take him down. Caleb, did you have another question? We got a few more too.
okay.
Brad, let's see. Brad, go ahead. Yep, you're on, Brad.
There you go.
And a couple others, and kind of an overall theme that's been running through tonight, which is make sure you get your comments into the commission, because making them here does not get them that far. And I think that's important. But having been in elective politics for over 30 years, when we're talking about the social side of this, we're talking about the political side of it. And I would say, call into your local talk radio show and tell them what you think of these proposals that give what seems to be, in my opinion anyway, an incentive to deny access while we're trying to give incentive to increase access. And I wouldn't hold back. It's so easy to beat up the commission. 6 out of 7 commissioners were appointed by Governor Gianforte. This is his. He owns it. They are all to some degree very pro outfitter and very lukewarm to the request of resident hunters. If you build a fire under Gianforte, who very much wants to be reelected, he will bring the pressure to bear where it needs to be brought. Anything else leaves him out, and it becomes a nameless, faceless commission. So between editorials, call your representative or your senator, did they vote to overturn the Sportsman's Initiative of 2010? Are they willing to write legislation to put it back in place? Find somebody to run for that office. If not, and as I and so many others have had to do, pay the $15 and run. Sportsmen are 254,000 strong that own big game licenses. We control the entire narrative, but only if we've got 26 senators and 51 reps. So it's not just commenting to the commission, it's building a fire where it needs to be built. it's going to your local paper and putting an editorial in there. Your regional paper, Billings Gazette, Great Falls Tribune, whatever, Rod and Gun Clubs, be vocal and be very, very pointed. Otherwise, we're just talking into an empty room. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Brad.
no, thanks for that, Brad. Yep, and that's we're operating under the North American model, and so we expect those comments to go into those folks that make those decisions, whether it be those local legislators, your representatives, the commission, the governor, and this is one of those avenues to get in and have your comments read by the commissioners. So thanks for that, Brad. So any more?
Chris, go ahead.
Wanted to mention something to Ron. All of that stuff that came through the legislative, like it just seemed dirty this year. Like they were just handing everything to the landowners. We all want them to have something, but the problem is there's so much money in elk hunting that as soon as you give them something, everybody assumes it's bought and paid for by a politician to a landowner or this, that, and the other. I mean, that's, I think something like we were talking where we need to give them something that doesn't have a dollar value to them, but will mean something to them, if you will. That's all I got to say, guys.
Nope, thanks for that, Chris. So
Hey, there was TJ. So the question I was working on for TJ, he asked if the unlimited licenses were over the counter unlimited or by draw unlimited. And he seemed to recall that when the 900 elk archery permits originally came out, that maybe there was a difference in whether there was a non-resident cap on those, depending on whether they were over the counter or through the drawing. So for you guys that are still on that had that question, and I am going to have to do some homework on that. And I am sorry for not being prepared to answer that question. It's something that Mike and I actually discussed earlier today. And we got so busy working on some other stuff, we didn't get around to getting an answer, but we'll try to get you guys an answer.
Ron might have us covered.
Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, as you guys were talking about that earlier, Matt, I was texting the licensing and they confirmed that when it's unlimited, regardless if it's a drawing or over the counter, it's unlimited and there's no 10% applies to non-residents.
Okay, very good. You probably saved me an hour, Ron.
No problem.
All right, we got any more hands there, Robbie?
Not at the moment.
Okay, so let's take this. If anybody's got, so I do have slides. I'm not 100% prepared for tomorrow, but
I do have one more, Mike.
Questions about deer, elk, mountain lions, or not elk, but antelope, moose, sheep, goat, turkeys, whatever. We can spend a little time on that. We can stay on elk if we're there too. So, hey, there's
I got Doug.
Yep.
Go ahead, Doug.
Doug, you might still be muted, so.
There we go, Doug.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good, Doug.
Yep.
Okay, like I said, thanks for getting to me, and I want to thank you for your great responses to some great questions tonight. I got a couple of little questions here, and some of them have already been brought up, but in the beginning of the season settings, one of the things I heard from the beginning was that it was going to simplify a lot of things regards to all the species applications, so on and so forth. A little silly question here is why is the hunting district units changed their numbers? I see 590 is 590, 530 is now 535. Is there any reason, and how did that come about? I would think that if you stayed with this kind of the same numbers, it'd be less confusing to a lot of people when it comes to application time. And second question is, which I think Chris commented on about compensating and helping out landowners who give permission to harvest elk. I likewise had thought about Wyoming's system where they have a landowner coupon. And that is a good system because it might open up a lot more hunting opportunities for people that do not want to enroll in block management. So anyway, thanks a lot.
I can, Doug, I appreciate the question. I'll attempt to answer the first one. And so as we looked at the regulations, we were talking about simplification, as you mentioned, and a big part of that was reducing, one of the things we were tasked with was reducing the number of hunting districts that we had. So in order to do that, we were going to combine some hunting districts together. So one of those hunting districts was going to lose its identity. So that in part was a reason for changing the numbers. Another reason for changing the numbers is we wanted all of the deer elk districts and the antelope districts to have different numbers. Before, for example, hunting district 590 for deer and elk northeast of Billings here was for deer and elk, but the hunting district for 590 antelope was clear up in is currently clear up in the northwest portion of Region 5. And from an enforcement background and standpoint, we had several issues over the years that people are putting in for a 590, not antelope district tag, for example. And, granted, we're all supposed to read our regulations and understand them fully and know where we're going hunting, but there was some confusion and that ran into some problems where people were actually hunting antelope and deer elk 590 thinking they were in the right district. So our thought there was to try to kind of alleviate some of that. And also with as many changes as we were having there, adding or changing the numbers of the hunting districts was to kind of really get people inspired to digging into the regulations more than they had before in the past, and actually digging in and reading those regulations, because it kind of brought some enlightenment to just that there was a lot of changes going on with the hunting regulations. And I don't know if it was the right answer or not to change all the numbers, but it's kind of what we came up with. And through the simplification process, it just seemed to be what worked. And, the districts that we didn't have any boundary changes on, or we didn't add anything together or get rid of portions on, many of those we left the same. But hopefully that answers that part. And
Doug, I'd share in there that is one of our concerns, that we changed the numbers. And so it's going to complicate it a little bit for Robbie's shop, Pam's shop up front. One of the things that we've done in the past is we've set up our meeting room where people could enter the meeting room. This is where I think I want to hunt. We line them up with, this is the district, this is where it's at. Get all that paperwork prepped before they come around to the front desk. We might end up trying to do that again, because we suspect that we're going to have a lot of folks that just don't want to mess up, but because we changed the number, they'll be calling instead of, self applying. And so we'll see, but, we'll live through that pain this first round and then go through there. Sean and I were talking earlier about 565. That was its own district in the 1980s. We had quite a few more districts in the 1980s than what we had coming into this round. And so we've dropped it and people will adjust, but yeah, it's that transition we know is going to generate some more calls and confusion in the first year or so. So
yeah, and we sympathize with you. I mean, we all know the districts by their old numbers too, and it's hard for us to even, kind of come up with and think about what the new numbers are. But hopefully we can make the transition, and maybe long-term it helps people stay in the right district with the correct species that they're hunting, et cetera.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Caleb, I see, and Eric just popped their hands back up too. So
Yeah. Go ahead, Caleb.
Am I muted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first question I have is not elk related. Are we still okay to do that?
Yep. Yeah, we've opened it up for whatever species here, so.
Okay, so it's primarily whitetail, but it would also carry over into mule deer. I'm originally from Georgia, and it's a lot less complex down there, of course, but you only have whitetail deer. But you were able to take 2 whitetail antlered bucks. One of those had to be, 4 or more on one side, and the other could be any size. Is there any hopes that we might be able to look at something like that? Because, everywhere I've hunted this in the past few years has been affected by the chronic wasting. And you get some places where there are no bucks anymore, or you get some places where I've seen 12 bucks one morning and 2 does. And this past year, I've seen more bucks than does by a significant amount. And I go out and I start hunting and kind of checking the populations of those little pieces of land that I hunt, which are primarily public. I try to know what I'm gonna go get before hunting season starts. And I've seen a lot more bucks. And then all of a sudden there'll be no bucks. So I'm wondering if maybe from a biological standpoint, what you guys' thoughts were on that.
Matt, should we kick this one over to Justin, or do you want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question for the biologist. Justin, Ashley, Sean, Megan, maybe start with Justin, see, what his thoughts are, and kind of, I think what you're getting at a little bit, Caleb, is point restriction type stuff for bucks. And I will let the biologist speak to that.
I guess I can start off on that, Matt. There's some different aspects to that question, but from a CWD standpoint, we are looking to harvest more bucks in our areas where we know we have CWD, and and for the most part, we have regulations that with the number of hunters we have, that we're keeping those buck numbers at pretty low levels in those CWD areas. And then in terms of point restrictions, most of the research when we talk about point restrictions in Montana has been focused on mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a lot of examples across the West where those point restrictions have not produced bigger bucks when it comes to mule deer. But in terms of whitetail, I guess I don't have a real good handle on, point restrictions or harvesting multiple bucks. It's not something that we've really put a lot of, I guess, thought into, or things that we've tried in Montana. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
Okay.
One part of it would be buck to doe ratios. And I think Ashley could probably speak to buck to doe ratios and the importance of maintaining ratios within a certain range to maintain a healthy deer population.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at when we do our flights and our surveys, especially these post-season surveys we do in December and January, is we're looking at how many bucks per 100 does are still on the landscape. And that's the ratio we use to look at how the populations are doing, and if we need to adjust, go into an antlered buck only on a general license or staying at an either sex option. Where we don't have trend areas, we used buck harvest to look at that kind of information, and then what those long-term trends are showing. And so that's what we use more when we're trying to keep tabs on what a population is doing. Like Justin said, in the wake of CWD, we're trying to find that balance between having good buck-doe ratios for biological diversity, but not having such high buck-doe ratios that we are setting ourselves up to have more areas of CWD on the landscape that are traveling long distances and spreading that disease around, which is what we usually see in the older mule deer bucks.
Right, and I see that y'all have, kind of a quick thing to do, something that's quick and in place if you need to do, antlerless only, but there's not really anything that I can see, in the regs or anything, that if you have too many bucks, there's no quick thing that you can jump up to where you can harvest more bucks?
Yeah,
Is
there
that
is a
because you-
process, there is a process for doing that, Caleb, and it
Okay.
kind of pretty much has to be a special hunt type situation, and those have to be approved through the commission before we do that. I mean, there is a method to kind of get into what you're talking about in case, you know, there is a situation where we need to go in and harvest a significant number of bucks, but that's done through a commission, you know, type special hunt. So.
Okay, I didn't know if
Yeah.
if there was ever anything to, like, you have a archery buck tag and then a general buck tag or anything like that, or if it was just special hunts only.
Yeah.
Okay. And I forgot my other question for now, so.
We can bounce back again too, so Eric.
Thanks, Caleb.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I won't be able to attend tomorrow's meeting on the deer. I just had a couple of deer questions, especially combining, I think it's 530 and 511 into the 535. 511 had a general, you could shoot a doe on a general tag, but it was like youth only. And it seems like the new regulations are taking the 530 structure where you can shoot it, shoot a doe on just a general license, regardless of age or youth hunt. And I guess the bigger question I have in all this is, I mean, I don't mind the 511 structure where it's youth hunt to shoot a doe, but I don't, especially in the current 530. I mean, it seems like that's maybe another question I have is I can go to the elk, I can go district by district and see your population estimates. I don't believe I can do that with deer unless I'm missing something. It seems like there's just regional numbers. And it seems like from the region as a whole, region 5 is at a cyclical low for the last 10 years. So I'm not sure why you're shooting does on a general license, especially in 530, I guess is maybe a comment and a question. I mean, are there population, not so much objectives, I guess objectives too, but population estimates on a hunting district level within region 5, like for 530?
Yeah, so there's the adaptive harvest management plan, but we'll probably kick that over to Ashley to address those trends and do that. So that's her area. So.
Yeah. So in 530, so that's where we have these trend areas that we're flying. And so what we see in Hunting District 530 is that we are about 4% below the long-term average on those trend areas for total numbers of deer, and our buck to doe ratios and our fawn to doe ratios were a little lower in 2021, but they still fell within the standard season package, which is that general license antlerless mule deer harvest combined with the mule deer buck permit. The mule deer buck permit in that district was put in place in 1987 to address chronically low buck doe ratios. It's not a trophy area like some of the other limited entry permit areas for mule deer. Before that, we were struggling with buck doe ratios as low as 4 bucks per 100 does. And so that permit's been in place since then. What we've seen with that permit structure is that we've been able to maintain higher buck doe ratios. And then overall, the numbers have been relatively stable. We've had highs and lows as we've gone through the years. Right now, we're sitting right around average. We'll see what the spring surveys look like. And that's what we use to set the B license numbers. This season setting process that occurs biennially, that's where we have the ability to change the structure, which is when we could go from antlerless mule deer on the general license to, say either sex or no opportunity. And from 2014 to 2017 in 530, we didn't have any antlerless mule deer opportunity on the general license because that's what the trend areas was showing us that we needed to restrict that. Combining 511 and 530 makes a lot of sense for elk because we have the same regulation type. Those elk move around, they use the landscape pretty similarly. It makes sense for whitetails because we have the same regulation on those, either sex on the general tag. Mule deer is where it gets a little more complicated because we do have that 530 permit structure and the numbers are doing better. And overall, they're just a little bit more mule deer on the landscape. As you get into 511, that's where we've really struggled with our mule deer numbers. You know, we're not seeing what we used to see. And so we have had antlerless harvest restricted. And then we just had mule deer buck hunting for the last 11 years there. And so when we combine these districts to make it easier and more simple, you know, we had to choose, do you, you know, follow the 530 model? Do you follow the 511 model? And because we're still worried about some of those buck-doe ratios, if we were to get rid of the permit, we bring the permit over to cover both districts. And then we kind of weighed the options of, do you go antlerless on the general license and see, you know, what that effect is in 511 trend areas for 2 years before we can go back and maybe adjust that? Or do we start with having no antlerless mule deer on the general tag and just doing, you know, limited mule deer B licenses? And so, you know, we kind of looked at it and we decided to try antlerless mule deer on the general license combined with that permit. I'm going to be watching it pretty close the next 2 years as we do those surveys to see what effect we're having, and see if we need to adjust that and go back to, you know, no antlerless mule deer on the general license and just having mule deer B licenses to address game damage issues where we have those.
I guess my comment would be, it would be my thought you'd apply the 511 model to the 535 where it's kind of youth only to be more conservative, especially if you're below objective. I guess just my comment. But when I went on the website, like I said, I can see the elk population by district. Now, when I go for deer, all I can see is like a regional number. Is there somewhere that breaks down the hunting district population and objective for deer on your website somewhere?
I'm not sure on that one.
It's there for elk and that's easy enough, but.
Let me jump in. This is Sean. For mule deer, there's not hunting district objectives. There are survey area objectives. So in Ashley's area, her survey area is northeast of Roundup. It's a census area. And there is an objective for the number of deer to be seen on that census area. We are making the assumption that that census area is representative of the entire hunting district. But there is not an objective for a hunting district, only a census or trend area. That said, on our website someplace, and I don't know where it is, but there are hunting district population estimates for mule deer, whitetail, elk, whatever. I can't quickly tell you where to go find that, but we do an annual estimate of each of those species by hunting district. And if you're seeing a regional number, that's just a summation of those individual hunting districts.
Where you're at is exactly where I looked. So if you click on like 2021, all I saw was just the regional data, unless maybe something's changed since last week.
Yeah, and I'm just playing too because I
so this is all I can really see in the public domain. It's just kind of region 5 data for population.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, I don't know where it is, but we do a hunting district estimate every year for mule deer. It's pretty loose. That's a lot of assumptions that go into it. I wouldn't take it to the bank, but there is a population estimate every year, but it is not tied to an objective. Objectives are based on the trend or census areas.
So when you say like it's 4% below, that's more just a long-term average as opposed to say an objective.
It's 4% below the census area average.
Okay.
So the census area is flown postseason and again in the spring. And that 4% is based on the spring count, the long-term average for the spring count.
All right, that helps. And I'll just kind of submit my comment about the antlerless hunting, especially in the combined 535 area. So I appreciate that. And if you do ever stumble on where that is in the public domain, I'd be interested to see that link where it divvies it down to the hunting district population for deer.
Yep, that's something we can dig a little bit and see if we can't get that added in there. So,
All right, thank you.
yep.
Thanks, Eric.
Hey, Mike, Lee Deming had a question that he posted online and kind of a comment more, but he asked if someone would suggest that the commenters contact their CAC members with some of these ideas and or concerns. Mike, can you speak to the CAC role that's coming up in the public meeting on the 6th and just a little bit as the CAC's role with the department in general?
Yep. So thanks, Lee, for being on. And Doug is also on our CAC. I didn't see anybody else tonight that's from our CAC, but the CACs are our Citizens Advisory Commissions. We have, everybody was willing to stay on. So we have the same commission that we've had in the previous year. And their role is really to kind of be a sounding board for ideas. And then also for things that they've heard on the ground out in their areas to bring back. And so it's a way just to kind of informally share those ideas in a group that's been organized part by interest and part by geographic location throughout our regions. So this upcoming meeting in January 6th, we'll have a similar meeting rather than this district by district kind of quick run through. It'll really be the 10 to 30,000 foot look at here's the big changes. And commissioners, here's a few minutes for you to share what you've heard on the ground and concerns that you want to share with us on this process. And we're going to do that for the first hour with the commission. And then after that, we're going to open it up for the public and the commission to be able to do exactly what we're doing tonight. That's going to be a little bit different come our next CAC meeting, where Doug will help work with the other members of the CAC. They'll help develop the agenda items and we'll go through. So some of our CAC members are not deep into hunting and represent some of the other interests that are out there. Some are more fishing oriented, some for our state parks. And so there's some of those folks are less interested in what's happening with the season setting, whereas Lee and Doug and several others are very interested in this hunting piece. So that's kind of the role that they play. It's good for those folks to reach out to their area CAC members and share those conversations so that they can bring them back to us. It's not a politically appointed group. It really is a sounding group that comes through, but definitely lean on them to be some additional eyes and ears out there for us. So Lee, I hope that helps. And then I do plan on contacting the board members here either late this week or next week and kind of run through where we're at too. So I appreciate you jumping on and Bob getting that information out to you. So thanks. So that CAC joint public season setting information meeting again is January 6th. For those of you that are out there, we are also looking at trying to set up an in-person public meeting, date to be determined, but it'll likely be here at our office headquarters, probably that week of the 10th, somewhere in there. So that's yet to be determined. It'll come out in a news release as well. But our next opportunity is tomorrow night to talk about other species. And then for folks that couldn't make it tonight, want to talk about elk, we'll have time for that too. So based on what I've heard from input from other region meetings, about 90% is elk and 10% is the rest. So I suspect tomorrow will go more quickly for all the others, and then it'll be more time spent on elk, but we'll see how that goes. So if there's other questions, we still have time, about another 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, we got Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
So with the deer hunting, have you guys ever, with the new muzzleloader season, has it been ever mentioned like knocking a couple weeks out a rifle and instead of doing a heritage season, more of a short range weapon like Idaho does?
That might be a Ron question to see. I have not seen that batted around, but Ron maybe's got more. Yep, there's Ron.
Yeah, Chris, the heritage muzzleloader season was something that happened in statute in the last session. So the dates were very specific in the statute when that needed to happen. So I haven't heard any comments or any ideas of moving that around. But the heritage muzzleloader season, that would take a legislative change to change that.
Because I hunted it 7 days this year. I mean, I absolutely loved it. It was super enjoyable, but it just seems like it would help our more mature bucks if we could stop hunting them the last 2 weeks of the rut with a rifle.
Sure, and that, those type of ideas, like I said, those are something that we need the public to speak on, if those are the types of things you guys want. So,
Well, and then the thing that I really enjoy about it, or would like about the thought of that, is the crossbow guys have been banging on the door for how long now, wanting to get in with the archery season. If you made a short range weapon and kept that as the legal muzzleloader, you could put crossbows and bows in there. 2 birds, 1 stone.
yep, again, those are all things that could be done if that's what the public wants, and it just has to be brought before the commission.
Yeah. All right. That's all I had on the whole deer thing, was that, because that was quite the hunt. It was different.
Yeah, now you're just making Matt feel good. He got a deer too with his muzzle loader. So
Yeah, I didn't see anything I wanted to shoot.
Yeah, it was an antlerless harvest for me, Chris. And hey, thanks for bringing those comments up, and we appreciate you guys' participation, and we're glad that that was an opportunity that you were able to get out and enjoy as well. So
I loved it. I just, everybody talks about the overcrowding, and as soon as they did that, I put in for 9 states last year. I've been muzzleloader hunting other states for the last decade. And so when they did this, I bought the gun and I didn't even hunt during general rifle for deer.
Oh, good for you. Cool.
I had no intentions of doing it. So
oh, I see Ron's got his hand back up too. So
You're still on, Ron. Go ahead.
Sorry, my hand was just been raised. I've got nothing.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think we're all set there.
all right, guys. Well, I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
we're looking, all of our written comments were pretty well handled, and we're sitting good. Or
sorry for my light going on and off in this office tonight, guys, and me. Just one of those energy saving devices, and I look like I'm losing my mind waving around trying to turn it back on. So
yeah. Again, I do want to thank our biologists. This has been a marathon, starting out with here's the go, and here's what we'd like you to work on, and then the social pieces. It's I think you heard the director at the commission, recognizing that these folks went through a lot of changes and a lot of ideas. A lot of the things that they cautioned them on, came about in some of those discussions. And so a lot of appreciation that way, all the way around. It's been quite the load. Yeah. Keep waving at that light, Matt. So I want to thank them for, sharing their evening tonight too, and being prepared to answer whatever questions came through, because they really did throw in hunting season, still trying to collect data at the check stations, still trying to see what's happening on the ground. Also want to kick it out to Matt and the crew that, we did get a go ahead to try to work on some additional flights to kind of get caught up, to make sure we have some good survey data going into these changes too. So thanks you guys for the tremendous amount of work that you've been putting into this, and past seasons and future seasons. So, well, I see Brett's got his hand up. So
go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for taking your time for tonight, and expressing your ideas and thoughts with us, and listening to everything that's been going on. I've tried to listen to the commission meetings, and it's always interesting the assaults you guys get, but I truly do appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thanks.
No, appreciate you joining in tonight too. So thanks.
Thanks, Brett.
Well, if that's it, we'll give everybody an extra 5 minutes for the night and maybe say, see some of you tomorrow night, maybe a few on the 6th. And if you're looking forward to a in-person one, there should be some information coming out after the third once Bob's back in and we can get working on a news release and finalize some dates and times. So that, nobody throws up the last second hand, we're gonna call it. So
Thanks a lot, you guys. Thanks for showing up.
everybody. Yeah, everybody have a good night.